good evening. It's nice to see you all. This is the next section of our interviews of interesting and or famous Jews throughout the world. We've had the opportunity to speak to many. We had a young woman just last week, excuse me, that had been in a terrorist attack on the bus in Jerusalem, and how that not only changed her life, but gave so much meaning to her life. And she spoke about that. We've had the chief rabbi of South Africa speak for us. We've had all kinds of people, from throughout the world. And tonight is no different. We have an extraordinary guest with us. His name is Yosef Juarez. Yosef is going to fill us in a few things. He's going to first tell us a bit about his past and about how he was a part of a church that changed and the members became Jewish, including the religious leaders. And Yosef now lives in Texas. He has published on H.com that tells some of his story. And he also mentioned to me that there is also another location where the story is he's been interviewed, and it's much more at length, which I'm sure he's going to fill us in or give us a link to later on. And in the meantime, I want to welcome everyone on your behalf. I want to welcome Yosef Juarez from Houston, Texas. So hello, Yosef.
Hello. Everybody can hear me okay? You can hear me, Rabbi?
Yep, I hear you. It's great.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
So we're going to give Yosef the opportunity to speak a bit about his past and about the church he was a member of and how they made such a big change. And then we're going to talk a bit about the present and the future. So Yosef, if you don't mind, if you would start us off and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak and share my story. Thank you, Rabbi Rothman. It's always a pleasure to share my journey and it's something that I find that also helps me connect and really remember, similar to what we do on Pesach, as a Jewish nation. So every time I tell my story, it's a big chizuk for myself, and I'm sure as well for others. So first of all, I'll just tell you that it's pretty much impossible to tell my entire story in such a short amount of time, but I'm going to give you a good, what I would call the trailer version of the story. And I also want to share a little bit about some exciting things that I'm working on with regards to that are connected to my journey. And, obviously I want to open up for questions. So I want to keep sort of my part a little bit on the shorter side so I can hear from you. And I, will be happy to answer questions. Oftentimes that becomes a lot more entertaining and interesting than me just rambling about myself. So I'll start with a little bit of an introduction, which, kind of puts a frame on my story. And it's the point that when people come to Judaism, they often commit because they think they found the way to Judaism. They're searching. Some people even try, other religions or various denominations of Judaism and so on, until finally they come to Torah observant Judaism, to Orthodox Judaism, let's say, different ways to call it. And then people think, I've arrived. That's it. Now life is going to be easy because I don't have to keep searching and figuring things out. And the truth is that it can be extremely deceiving, because it's like you arrive at a cross section where there's like a highway of tangled roads going in every direction, and cultures and different types of Jews, and they're all telling you this is the way to go and this is the way to do it, and cultural viewpoints. And I can say that, like, I converted 14 years ago in 2006, that the theme of my life until now, and it continues, can best be described, I should say, learning to surf the waves life brings you. Like, you really have to learn how to adapt to the ups and downs, to the challenges that of integrating into a new culture and identity can bring. So with that, I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. Again, it goes to show that growth in Judaism is not a straight line oftentimes, but often can be compared to a maze that's ever changing and pushing you to grow. So I was born in Honduras, and typically, since I'm speaking to a Toronto crowd, usually I open up with a joke, which isn't relevant because you guys know geography. When I speak to New Yorkers, um, typically somebody will raise their hand and say, well, where in Mexico is that? And so at that point, typically that's my opening line. But anyway, not going to work with this crowd. Obviously, Honduras is a country in Central America, between Costa Rica and Panama. I was born, my family in Honduras is predominantly secular. They claim to be Catholic. My mother was the first one to go off the derech and become religious. And so you can appreciate that. I'm the oldest of four. I was raised my whole life religious, just in the wrong religion. And everything really started, believe it or not, at the age of 3 years old. At the age of 3 years old, I had an accident where I fell from the second story of my house into concrete headfirst and had a fracture. It was nothing short of a miracle to survive that. As a result, my mother was the big influencer, the big force in my life, spiritual force in my life, always pushing me to grow. And she really instilled in me a sense of purpose, a sense of purpose and belief in God. And she always said, there's a reason you survive. There's something that you have to do. And so as a result, I was always asking myself, what am I supposed to do? What is this thing that I'm supposed to do? And always very curious and wanting to learn more and more about in that sense, growing up as a Christian, learn more about that, and eventually all these questions with a group of my church led us to Judaism, which that's exactly what I'm here to talk about. So when I was 8 years old, I moved, our whole family moved to Houston, Texas. And it's an interesting thing, religion in a third world country where there's crime and violence and you really need it to survive. You have to believe in something, to have hope. Versus America, which is more like golf. You go golfing on Sundays. The sort of the attitude that we found in the more Americanized Christian world was that it really is not something you bring home with you. It just, it's kind of like a club you pertain to. So obviously it became very difficult coming from a background where religion was life. To really fit in and find the right place. So the church that we went to in Honduras had branches in the United States, and we met with another group of people who from Honduras as well, who wanted to start a church. So my family began a church in Houston, Texas. Started off as a what we would call a cell group in a garage and a guitar, and they sent the havdil, like a shaliach, over to see if this would take root. To everyone's surprise, the church grew over a period of about 10 years to 300 members and 2 branches in the Houston area. It was an evangelical church. It was all about, dividing and conquering. We had pins on a map as to the places where we were going to go and sort of bring people in. And there was all kinds of family activities and really, I can say that my whole life was church. I was part of the choir. I was the head of the youth group. My whole life was completely surrounded by religion. So what can cause a church to go and find Judaism? Well, its leader, his name is Hector, and now his name is Moshe Chaim. He really was somebody who we were a very unique church. We mostly Christian churches. They when they speak, they give a sermon, they'll go and pick pasukim from here and there, and they'll come up with a theme or topic that they want to talk about, and that's about it. We really were going through what was the Torah, what we call the Old Testament back then, um, uh, in portions, like really like we do in Judaism. So it gave a different perspective and it raised bigger questions. So one day, somebody gifted this minister a Greek New Testament. So the question is, why Greek? So for those of you who don't know, the New Testament's original language was ancient Greek. So he wanted to bring a, Chapot Devar Torah from this. He wanted to know, okay, so, in Hebrew, Hashem has many names, 72 names. So which one was translated? Which one of the essences of from the Hebrew was translated into Greek? He wanted to go and bring a Devar Torah, and what he found was that the original, he did this obviously very slowly with a Greek dictionary and searching online and so on. It was a very tedious process. He doesn't know ancient Greek, like most people. But what he realized was that this Greek New Testament had a lot of Greek mythology names, Greek mythology gods, there. And he's like, wait a minute. Like, even Christians believe that, don't believe in paganism, don't believe in Greek mythology. So this can't be right. Something's wrong. I must be reading this wrong. I must be looking at this the wrong way. So he asked colleagues, and they said, why are you searching? Just close the book. You have a great church. It's successful, it's profitable. Why are you going to go ask for trouble? Just close the book. And he was shocked to know that some either didn't know and some knew something was, the origins of Christianity. There were problems there. And then he went and asked, he called up a university where there was a Greek professor, and everything pointed to the obvious, which was that the roots of Christianity are I should say, rooted in Greek mythology, Greek pagan mythology, which is obviously a terrible thing, because they believe, and now this is the way I like to phrase it, they believe they're the new Jews. And I'll prove to you that point and how that is. Very soon. So he didn't know what to do with his discovery. Here he is, a minister of two churches, very successful, very happy people. We were like a family, very charismatic, very family-oriented organization. And now what to do? So he tried to speak to a couple rabbis, and of course they thought he was, I don't know about this guy, and kind of pushed them away. It was a little bit hard to get a hold of a rabbi that would give him the time of day to discuss this. Eventually, there was a rabbi who sent him anti-missionary tapes, which basically debunked Christianity. And I believe there was a Chabad rabbi. They believe a lot in Sheva Mitzvah Bnei Noach and sort of converting goyim to becoming Bnei Noach. So he realized that there was an issue with Christianity. And here's typically how I like to explain it. What I think it's best explained by understanding what Christians believe about Jews and the Torah. What's their approach? What do they believe about us? Like, why would they think that that there's a New Testament, there's a new, they're the new Jews, so to speak. Here's what they believe. They believe Hashem gave the Torah Har Sinai, and that the Jews are the chosen people. They believe that the Jewish people were the Mamleches Kohanim, who were supposed to bring about that mission, in the world. But one little problem, the Chet HaEged, right, the golden calf. After the sin of the golden calf, Hashem comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, step aside, I'm going to wipe them out, and I'm going to start over with you. And he says, I'm going to send over a malach, and he's going to lead you. And so this malach, they claim to be, this is a reference to Yashka from the New Testament. This is a reference to this covenant was broken. The luchos that were broken, that means Hashem did away with the covenant that he did with the Jewish people. Later in Ancient Torah, I learned that in the book of Yehoshua, when he's going into battle and he sees a man standing on the field with a sword, he says, "And who are you? Are you with us or against us, so to speak?" And he says, "Now I have come." Like, what kind of answer is that? "Now I have come," was making a reference to the Malach that Hashem was supposed to send to lead the Jewish people into battle, and to lead. But because of the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu, it didn't happen until after Moshe died. So that's obviously, again, because you pick psukim here and here, you don't see the full picture, and obviously, there's no Torah Shabbal Peh to explain what really is going on. So now there's a need for a New Testament, according to them. And the problem is that the New Testament, Christianity was established by Constantine, a Roman emperor. Um, and it was established by force. So all the origins of Christianity are Greek, because it was established by, he put in charge of this campaign his mother Helena, and the first Christians were Hellenist. Obviously, this topic here is a topic of great controversy. There's all kinds of scholars who have all kinds of different theories about what the real story is, whether Yashka really did exist, if he didn't exist, he existed. There's Gemaras, there's all kinds of things. Obviously, I'm not claiming to be a scholar in this subject, but I can guarantee you, just in the plain facts, the New Testament's first language was written in Greek. And if you look at history and how Christianity was established, it was established 300 years after the supposed life of Yashka. So how many people remember 9/11, as is the famous thing that I say? Well, we remember, but do we remember every fact? Like, when would you start a revolution against something? Do you start it immediately, or do you wait 300 years? The United States has been around not even 300 years. So it would be like starting a revolution of something that happened 300 years ago now. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And everything around it points to the Greeks, and what they wanted. If you look at Christianity and what they accept and don't accept, they don't accept the bris, they don't accept Shabbos, they don't accept everything has to do with Torah Shabbal Peh. That they wanted to talk about a Mashiach that was coming, and they needed for Jews to convert because they were losing the battle, and the only way. And the way that they try to do it, as we know from Hanukkah and the story of Hanukkah, is by coming against our Judaism. So all this became clear in some formats. Obviously, over the years, we learn more. As we learn more, we discover more. So this minister was in quite a bind, as he discovers that he's leading basically, two churches, and Christianity is false. He had a similar story as mine with the whole accident thing. He actually survived cancer in a very miraculous way too. He was given only a few days to live, and it just went away. It was a big medical mystery. So again, somebody who really had a very strong belief in God, and his personality was one of being a very truthful person. So he wasn't going to stand to profit from the lie, like a lot of his colleagues were doing. And so he decided to come clean with the truth, which created, some people thought he was crazy. They went to other churches. Some people decided that means that you shouldn't believe in God, and became atheist or agnostic, whatever, or basically stopped believing in anything. And then there was a close group of followers, which we'll say, we're talking about less than 80 people, men, women, and children, a few families who are like, we're following you. You have to lead us, now what? Not what do we do? I remember that day when he came, and we started learning more and more about Torah, more and more about Judaism. And my mother was always in the center of the story, went to a Jewish bookstore where we had been going, and she found Aryeh Kaplan's The Real Messiah. And she comes to me, and that's how I found out. And my first reaction was like, you're crazy. Like, this can't be. Like, it's just absolutely, it's like being told your father's not your father, your mother's not your mother. It's such a shock, for a true believing person, that like everything you've been doing up till now is completely false and fake. And we're such a success story. We have, Kiruv Havdil, bringing people in and growing. So it was definitely something that shook us, and was a process. There was the rabbi who we were referred to a rabbi, a local Houston rabbi, but because the next step was we crashed a Shabbos morning service. This is the part where I say I believe Hashem has a sense of humor. It was a bar mitzvah, so people just thought that the Baal Simcha had a lot of Goyish friends. Nobody really knew to kick us out because it was a Simcha. A lot of different people coming into the show, and it was again extremely comical because we didn't know what a yarmulke was. I'd never seen a Jew before. I grew up in an out of town, in a little town outside of Houston. Houston has a community of Jews now of like 3,000 from, and so I mean the chances of running into them is, I grew up in this out of town community with population 20,000 more cows than people. Really, really, really out of town. So I had never seen a Jew with the yarmulke or tefillin or anything like that. So coming into the shul and it's in Chinese, I mean Hebrew, the whole thing, there's a wall in the middle of the room and everybody keeps standing. Although it's finished, no, it's not. We're sitting, we're standing, we're sitting, we're standing. It was the cultural shock was hysterical. And then to make things worse, I don't know if someone didn't like the Baal Simcha, but somebody invited us to the Kiddush luncheon that we were not invited to. And the caterer didn't know what to do with 80 people. It just crashed their simcha, and we were like, we discovered Cholent, and they're like, okay, we're here to stay. And that was the end of it. Really, it was we felt like we found a gold mine. Being people who were authentically interested in learning, authentically interested in growing and connecting to Hashem, really. Obviously, and from the article, it's a little misleading. The entire group of people didn't convert. There was about 5 families who converted in different stages, and every family had their own process. It took me 3.5 years. It became extremely political in the Houston area because there's all these converts all of a sudden, and they were like, what are we going to do to stop these conversions? They're like, who are these people? And, it's extremely difficult. But Hashem, you have a will, there's a way. I'm extremely stubborn. So the more they told me I couldn't have it, the more I wanted it. And I kept learning and kept at it. And 3.5 years later, I converted. A few Shabbos after that, I remember standing in the lobby after shul, and I overheard some students speaking about a free trip to Israel. And I was like, free trip to Israel? And my ears perked up. I searched free trip to Israel. Birthright came up, and I saw 18 organizers that, options. And there was one name I recognized. That was Aish Torah, because it basically was my university for Jewish education at the time. Aish website was very instrumental in learning throughout the process. So I chose Aish. I was connected to Rabbi Chaim Berg. We went on the trip, and he during the time we were in the old city, he told me, you're coming with me. He took me to Aish, to the yeshiva. I had no idea what a yeshiva was. I had no idea there was an option to go to yeshiva. And he said, you should come learn here. And to me, I was in college. I had an apartment. I was like, how am I going to leave my life and just a car payment, But so I couldn't do it immediately. So I went home. 6 months later, I was in yeshiva. I was in Aish Torah. It completely changed my life, to say the least. It's an experience that I'm very, very happy that I was 19 years old at the time when I converted. So I was still able to, to be a part of a yeshiva like that. I wasn't too old to be in the dorms and be a bacher in yeshiva. So it's an experience that, I wouldn't trade for the world. As a matter of fact, after I was there a year, I needed to come back to the States for residency issues. I had to keep my residency in the United States. So I ended up going to Or Sameach in Muncie as well for some time, for 2 years. Eventually, I got married in 2009, and 2011 moved to Israel. Lived there for 6 years. I'm kind of going through it, kind of fast because I want to get to another point and to open up for questions. So in 2017, I had to we had to come back to America for various reasons, and unfortunately, and as life will happen, I went through a divorce. I had in my first marriage, we had a daughter. She is now 9 years old, and in 2019, I remarried. My wife Hannah now was also previously married and had 3 children. So my family tripled. It's actually, I've always wanted a big family, and it's a lot of fun to have kids around the Shabbos table, to share with. It's one of the issues with converts, right? The feel alone. You want a sense of family and connection, and so to me, it's like one of the biggest gifts. It was a big bonus that the person that I wanted to marry already had a started family. Let's see what else. Right. With that, I'll say that throughout this entire process, um, it's one of the things I learned was that sometimes you have to make very unpopular choices, but they're the right choices to make. And because of what the community might think or what anybody might think, people won't do it. And in this case, I can definitely relate to that. And it's something I live by, and really I think it's one of the keys to having a successful Judaism, having das Torah, having a Rav, and this is where I kind of want to segue into what I do. What do I do now, right? So I run a web development company. That's just what I do for a living. But I have a passion to work with converts and Balei Tshuva. As a matter of fact, even when I was in yeshiva, I had chaburos where we would, learn together and learn how to, I've always been fascinated with learning how to integrate in a healthy way. So all kinds of um, different people and just struggles, in the BT community and the convert, with converts as well. And I'm so I do some. I'm a life coach, and I have a chabura for converts locally in Houston. Uh, we haven't been able to meet so much since COVID, so it became a little bit more like sharing Divrei Torah here online. But yeah, and also I'm a part of a online network for Balei Tshuva and converts called Ner Tamid with Rabbi Yahweh Rubenstein. I'm going to be sharing my link to like the extended version of my story, which is about an hour long, one that I recorded for Hidabrut. And I'm also going to share the link to that organization if anybody's interested or knows somebody who might benefit from it. The point of the organization is to give guidance and support to Balei Tshuva and converts, to bring up the difficult topics that really are not being spoken about the issues integrating to the various types of communities and the issues that one might have, like getting your kids into schools and things like that, and or again, hard topics, discrimination and and things like that, how to handle it, how to think about it. And the people who answer the questions are known Kiru professionals or rabbis, who typically the rabbis who probably were the ones responsible for inspiring that growth process, and sort of they're coming back to say, okay, so we got you into it, now how do we fix it, into this whole process. So with that, I can open up to questions. I don't know, the rabbi, if there's something else that you'd like for me to speak
If
about.
I could, there's a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on.
Sure.
First, can you tell us what became of the minister?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, the minister also became Jewish. He lives here in the Houston area. He's actually my neighbor. Lives a couple streets away. So the families that converted are from and are living. Some of them have moved away to other cities, but we're still in touch. And the rest, again, there was about 80 people. So this is where there's no mass conversion to Judaism, right? So you have to take every case on an individual cases. And the rabbi was very adamant that, if one spouse wanted to go through it, then not the other one, then you don't even qualify to start talking. Like, you had to be in it like together, and he didn't want to split families over it. and they obviously that was their choice. And so ultimately, there's a lot of them are B'nai Noach, and they're very connected to Judaism. They learn about Judaism. Some of them even will come to shul on Shabbos. There's a few of them here. Houston has a large community of converts and people who are interested in conversion, I should say. Um, so yeah, that's really what happened with the rest of the group.
And how about your parents? You mentioned your
My
mother,
parents, right?
very,
So it's
very,
interesting. I'm the oldest. I was, but I was 17 years old when we started this whole process. Teenagers don't have a good time with being rejected. Let's put it that way. So I was the stubborn one in the group. My family is extremely respectful and supportive of me being Jewish, and they understand it. They get it. My mother was just here helping my wife prepare for Yantiv, and she knows probably just enough halakha of kashrus to run her own kitchen and everything else, but obviously she hasn't gone through the process yet. A lot of it was because she still had younger children to tend to, and um, she also went through a divorce and is remarried, and it's, her husband isn't quite interested as much as she is. So again, it's just because you know someone or because you want to badly, it's not good enough. The person it has to be a unit, when it comes to conversion. So it's not that straightforward. She joins us for Shabbos, and she loves it. She wishes she was Jewish. My family, my father as well, even though he's not so much in the picture, he lives further away. Everyone we have is very respectful. There's a lot of harmony there. So Baruch
well,
Hashem, it's a big gift.
it's wonderful to hear. When we spoke earlier, I mentioned how our synagogue really is a magnet for many of the potential converts in Toronto, and that's mostly because the Basin of Toronto sends so many to us because we're in general we're a very open, friendly, accepting community, and we also have our classes, which for many of our beginners who were born Jewish, are very similar to what a person who converts would be going through as well. So we have, as I mentioned, like a United Nations. We have Asians and South Americans, Central Americans. You know, we have all kinds of people from all over the world who have converted, and many of them are part of our shul and very well accepted. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the Basin sends to us, is because the people are open and welcoming. But I have to say that when I speak to them, some of the potential converts, that they run into times where things are quite difficult.
Right.
That while Judaism is true, and we believe in it, we often can find that the lifestyle that we live can affect us. So the racism or bigotry that you would find in America, even some as well in Canada and other countries of the world, as much as we don't, we would like to say that it doesn't really affect us. For many of the Jewish people, including the observant people, racism and bigotry and so forth is a part of their life. They might talk about it, or as it's not accepted, but it's there. And I'm sure that many of the people who I've dealt with have come to me and told me stories of how they felt excluded, they felt looked down upon, because they were perhaps Black or Asian, and that the Jews, the old expression, you don't look Jewish, right? I was telling a story recently that I was at a bris in our shul, and I sat at a table where I didn't look Jewish, because everyone was either from Central America or from Asia, right, or from somewhere in Europe, and here I was, this white, originally American Jew, thinking this is what Jews look like, and I came to the realization that really I was a minority in this room. But they tell me these stories, and I'm wondering that because you got yourself very involved in trying to help other potential converts and Bali Tshuva, if these types of things happen to you as well, where
Sure.
you had some of these experiences, and were they part of the reasons that you decided to try to help pave the way for others?
100%. I felt that it was a responsibility to share what I had discovered, what I had learned along the way. And I can tell you, like I said when I started, that as soon as you think, oh, I've got this, you learn something new and you realize, whoa, this is bigger. Like there's more to learn about just, how to live and how to integrate into the Jewish community. And I would like to speak on that subject. It's actually something very funny that happened to me. Here in Houston, obviously, again, the community is very small, but the Jews that stand out are the Ashkenazi Jews. So I went to a place. It was a shipping place, like a FedEx type place, and the guy running the counter was a Nigerian, or originally Nigerian-born, like immigrant, and he looks at my yarmulke and he says, "What's that?" And I said, "What's what?" He's like, "What's that?" He's like, "It's a yarmulke." He's like, "You're not Jewish." He's like, so there's this Nigerian immigrant telling me I'm not Jewish. And I said, "So tell me, what does a Jew look like?" There's this whole, educational opportunity, just because you see Jews of one type, there's Black Jews, there's Jews from all over, just from all parts of the world. I think that one of the things that I found on a personal level that helps with that, obviously, at the beginning, I went through the same thing. I felt I didn't belong. One of the hardships is that, you leave your family to be a part of the Jewish people, but then necessarily Jewish people, you don't feel necessarily a part of the Jewish people so fast, and some people never. So I felt that it was important to help people feel a part of the Jewish people and to learn how to do that. There's actually a process in doing that. I find that there's two general approaches that converts take, and one of them is, I'm not going to tell them I'm a convert. I'm going to pretend that I'm a Jew that came from some place, and they'll make up a story, or they'll come up with they have to come up with a good story. And what I find is, like, you're always feeling like, I'm not being 100% authentic here, truthful. You feel a little bit bad inside, and oftentimes it people find out, and it becomes it hurts relationships. What I found to be most helpful is to be extremely open. The more you accept who you are and where you're coming from, and realize that it's a huge bracha, that it's a schus. So then, the more people don't even look the other way, and the more I accepted myself and my process and where I came from, the more I felt accepted by the Jewish people. So it's sort of like I'm looking into a mirror. If I feel that I don't belong, so I'm going to pick up on the things that make me feel like I don't belong. It's a matter of focus, is what I find. And so that's one of the ways that I deal with it.
And does this play a role in this organization that you spoke about with YY Rubenstein?
Sure. We speak about these subjects. People come, they ask their questions and say, I'm struggling with this and this and this. My kids are not being accepted in this school, and and they share their true struggles, and usually somebody, one of the rabbis or Rabbi YY will approach the question, obviously with anonymity, and give advice on first the perspective, and then practical advice on what to do, because we realize that we're all dealing with the same thing, everywhere. So these are subjects. A lot of times, people will feel that they're alone in this. Look, I'm the only one dealing with this. It only is happening to me, and it's not true. It's happening to everyone. And oftentimes, what you'll realize is it's happening to from birth people too. It doesn't. It's not just, you don't have to be a convert to be discriminated on. It's anytime you have a multicultural society, you're going to have I think I'm right when you're not a part of it. It's not necessarily a personal thing. It's simply a cultural issue. And if we learn to see it that way, then we take sort of the sting out of it, and it doesn't have to be personal. It still exists. It 100% exists. And there's plenty of examples of it, but it's the way we deal with it. Ultimately, we have to be the ones to move on. And we can decide if it's going to let us affect us, or if we can move on.
I see. Can you tell us a bit more about the organization that you're working with, and how it could expand perhaps to other places? Even here, as I mentioned to you earlier, I had never heard of it, even though I know YY Rubenstein quite well.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that he was doing that among the many things he does.
Right, sure. So really, we're playing this one by ear. We started off just trying to add value, and again, answering some of these questions and some of these issues. The goal is for it to become a network of support. That's always been my dream. Like, we have to help each other. I think Rav Noach was big into that too, Rav Noach Weinberg. He started many yeshivas. He understood that the people that are going to be the most compassionate and empathetic about where a person is coming from is someone who's already been there. So the solution is ourselves. We've already people have already gone through different stages. So you speak to someone who's been from longer and see how they deal with it. And it's a matter of connecting and not being afraid to ask for help. That's another one. Oftentimes, asking for help seems like there's I'm not good enough in this, and I'm having to ask for help. But the whole process is asking for help and growing and helping people, that are not where you are yet. The purpose of the organization, again, is to create a network of support, to offer guidance, and where it's something that it happens right now. It happens once a month through a share. It's broadcasted via Facebook. I'm going to paste the links here, so I'll do it now just so that people can take a look at the website as well, and you can ask your question there right on the website. And let's take a look here. I'm going to paste it to everyone. I've also pasted my email in case anybody wants to connect or ask me questions, and my full story. Can you see it there in the chat?
Yeah,
okay, excellent. So we're at the early stages of it, and we want to kind of listen to see what people are saying. What do they need? What do they want? What's the help that's needed the most, and we'll go towards that. So it's still, the reason it's not so well known is because it's very, very new. It hasn't been around for even a year yet. So I recommend to subscribe and to follow it, and feel free to share if you have any ideas of what some of the needs are, and we're going to take all of that into consideration and decide how we're going to move forward. But for now, it's simply helping answer questions. Sometimes one of the big issues is not having a Rav that understands where you're coming from, and like in your case, it's a bracha to have a community where there's people that are have similar stories in a way, similar journeys at least. There's plenty of converts in Baalei Tshuva who find themselves in communities where it's just they're not, people don't understand their struggles. And finding the right Rav is extremely important. And so oftentimes they don't know where to ask their questions. So we want to give them a platform. We want to say, okay, ask us your question. And these rabbis who are kibbutz professionals who understand, who have been working for years with Baalei Tshuva and converts for such a long time, they'll be able to answer the question and so on. So that sounds
like an excellent resource.
Yeah.
Really, just one other thing, and then I'm going to ask people to start thinking of questions. We've got a few minutes for them. Are you noticing that there is a significant increase in the amount of people who are interested in conversion today more than 20 years ago? I mean, if you can think back that far, because it seems to me that there's suddenly a much larger group of people from all types of walks of life who have decided, for all different reasons, that they wanted to leave the life they had and become Jewish, which is an enormous undertaking. As I mentioned to you before, that the fastest conversion that you can do in Toronto takes a year, right? And that's really for somebody who has a background already. It could take 2 or 3 years without any issue at all, without any question at all. And yet the people, they pay the money, they spend the time, they go through it, and at first it's extraordinarily difficult. The rabbis purposely are not, do not become very welcoming at first, and after a while they do. They become themselves again because it's part of the deal.
Right.
So there's got to be something that's drawing people to this. Is it philosophic? Is it pre-messianic? Is it, is there something maybe physical that's interesting? Is it, do you see that to be the case? And if so, do you have any idea why that's happening?
That's a good question. I've been around 15 years, and as a Jew, and definitely have seen an increase amount. Like when we were around, we were the only ones, and we were a big nuance. Before there was, I think at the show where we had arrived at, there was maybe 1 or 2 people that were in a conversion process, and then here comes the church. They weren't ready for us, and obviously, and now here in the Houston area, one of the reasons why it becomes so difficult for converts to integrate and be accepted is because there's so many and they keep coming there. It's like there's a constant influx of people who are interested in conversion. So it becomes hard for them. And I for sure think it has to do with the like messianic process of people discovering Judaism and so on. But I also think it has a lot to do with technology. Before, like, was even 10 years ago, let's think about how would you find out about Judaism. The internet really wasn't something that was so big. Now it's Torah is everywhere. Like you can find a share in about Judaism and just about anywhere, YouTube and so on and so forth. So it's available and people are reaching it, and it's reaching the right people. If it's about asking the right questions. People who are not afraid to ask the right questions, they're going to find themselves here or listening to a Torah share that explains what they're looking for. So definitely. And there's challenges with that as well, because you also see what I have seen is a huge lift in the Messianic community. Unfortunately, I had mentioned that the New Testament was original language is in Greek, so they got smart and they said, well, I mean, this whole thing, this is debunking our efforts. So they created recently, within the last few years, something called the Brit Hadasha, which is the New Testament in Hebrew. So now they're like, here's the New Testament in Hebrew. It's always been here. And it's like, no, it hasn't. So it's easy to get to convince people. There's messianic activity in Israel that I discovered, and so it's becoming harder and harder for converts to find the real authentic converts, which is the reason why it's becoming harder and harder to convert. So I don't necessarily think there's a bad thing to observe someone for a year and to really find out what they're about. I think that it's the responsible thing to do for a convert to really go through the entire Jewish 1 year of the Jewish holidays and everything else, and being a part of the community, to see what you're committing to, because it's a huge responsibility. Yes, it's becoming harder, and it comes with issues. Of course, who's really authentic, who isn't? So a lot of them infiltrate Jewish communities with the purpose of missionizing, if that's a word, or bringing Jews to Christianity.
Yes, I remember a case when I lived in Denver of a couple who you would never have guessed were missionary, and they had actually legitimately converted and lived within the community for about 3 years before they did the first missionary work. I mean,
Right.
just so people should know, when Yosef is referring to Messianic, he's speaking about the larger group that you might call Jews for Jesus,
Right.
which is just one of the groups within that. Messianic really means Jews who have found the Messiah, who is the Christian Messiah. That's the expression they use. At this time, I'd like to open up for anyone to ask a question. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. We do have a few minutes, and we have a wonderful opportunity with someone who can answer questions in all different areas, including the ones that we're talking about tonight. Would anybody like to sort of join in? Oh, everybody wants to just watch, huh?
It's fine.
All right. All right. So then, Yosef, you have a parting message that you'd like to leave for everyone. We've had about 27, 28 different units of people here, over 50 on Facebook so far. So it's been, we're getting around. So is there something as you're about to go that you'd like to, to leave with all of these people?
Right. So it's a little bit of I guess, circling back. When a person becomes from or converts to Judaism, and oftentimes people think, my problems are not going to be solved, or it's easier, and so on and so forth. To not be discouraged in the process of it. It's really, all of it comes back to a person's own personal growth. And like I said, learning how to surf the waves, learning how to surf the ups and downs. It's I would say that the key to being successful in living a integrated Jewish life is, first of all, you have to exist. If you feel that you're losing yourself in the process, something is wrong. The goal is to be able to enrich the core of who you are. You can't throw away what got you here. And by that, I mean, obviously we have to be halakhic. There's a Torah that tells us how to behave, but oftentimes people feel they have to throw who they were in the past into the garbage. And I feel that it's a big mistake. And they sort of, their Judaism becomes follow the leader. Let's follow what do I see. The problem with that is that you're in one community. What if, tomorrow you're in a different community? It's going to be completely different. It's not authentic and it isn't real. I think integration has to be it's sort of like creating your own brand of Judaism within what you're learning with Das Torah, with a Rav, having a connection to a rabbi who really understands you, really understands where you're coming from. It's very, very important. Reaching out, connecting. It's a lonely process. I remember many, many times, I had a simcha and then, I don't have my family here. They're not going to, I don't have anybody else but friends. So you know what? I decided that the Jewish people were my family. It's mindset. Yeah, we can either drown. Yeah, we can drown in our own pity, so to speak, self-pity, or we can decide to have the mindset to say, you know what? I have a big family. It's a huge family. It's the entire Jewish people, and it's all about how do you want to see things? Is life happening to me, or is life happening for me? And if we understand that Hashem put all the pieces, it was hashgacha pratis to get where we are, and Hashem put all the pieces together, then the growth process is no different. Then the process in Judaism isn't going to be any different. The struggle is part of that, of the strength of building ourselves up and becoming stronger and learning how to, again, surf those waves. That's the way I kind of see myself. I try to remember where my story and where I come from and the things that I had to go through to be where I am every time I face a new challenge, because otherwise it's hard. It's absolutely devastating. But again, reach out, connect, make friends, find the right people. If it's not, no one's going to come rescue you. That's what you have to make the effort to connect and to find, what you need. There's plenty of organizations out there trying to help. Ner Tamid is just one of them. And that's it. Just want to wish everybody a good moed and a lot of chatzlacha and growth. And
Reb, I have a question.
Yeah. Sure.
Please, Jay.
Hi. First of all, great speaking, really funny. I really appreciate it. Just one of my questions was, you mentioned that there's some, I guess, community or social discrimination within the Jewish community, and I was wondering if you could just highlight a few examples of those and how, as a community, we might minimize it or remove those from ourselves.
Okay. So what I can say is that some of what we had spoken about regarding this topic is that, oftentimes discrimination can be something that you feel because you're feeling that you're not good enough. Let's say people have struggle, sometimes putting their kids in a specific school. This happens a lot in Israel and also in bigger from communities. I'm not sure what the case is in Toronto as far as the options available. One of the biggest lessons I learned with regards to that, when I got to Israel, I wanted also to put, my child in the most, so to speak, right-wing Haredi school, let's say. And so I spoke to Rav Moshe Zeldman, and he gave me a beautiful, beautiful insight, because I was worried. I said, how are they going to accept him? And what should I tell my kid about the fact, should I tell them that I'm a convert? Then they're going to be made fun of in school and so on. So Rav Zeldman told me something beautiful, which is, why would you want to put your kid in a place where they wouldn't appreciate them for who they are? It's sort of find the place where they're going to be appreciated, and a lot of it changed my perspective of this whole wanting to fit into a specific thing. What is the need to try to fit into a specific box? It brought it back to me of who am I? Where am I? What do I stand for? What are my values? So when it becomes reflexive, then you can grow. If you feel that a person is discriminating you or not, one time I felt discriminated because I wasn't given an aliyah, maybe someone he forgot, it was just a specific number of men in the room, and I was skipped, and I was sure that I was skipped. And at the end, I thought of, we have to be done with like maybe, there's something else going on. At the end of it, I met this person weeks later, and he said, I want to apologize to you because I didn't give you an aliyah, and I realized I completely forgot, and I gave it to somebody else. I never brought it up, but it came around, and it cleared up. So if I feel that I'm being discriminated, I'm gonna find discrimination. It's the famous thing that they say is like, if I tell you, look for a specific color around the room, you're gonna look for all kinds of things that are gonna match. Your brain is gonna work overtime to make it match. So if you feel discriminated upon, it's probably also a reflection of how you're feeling about your Judaism. It doesn't mean that discrimination doesn't exist. I think that everyone discriminates. I don't think there's a race or ethnicity that doesn't discriminate. I think they're lying to themselves. It's a subject that we can see, it's even a worldwide subject, right? But it's what you think, am I gonna be a victim about it? Or what am I gonna do about it? What am I gonna do? Okay, I'm feeling this way, and this happened to me. Am I gonna go and make it discrimination? Am I gonna label it that? Or am I going to take a different approach about it? What can we do about it? Don't be, a lot of times, I could say for myself, there's people who are intimidating by nature. That's their personality. Go and reach out, say hello, giving. The last point that I was trying to make about, the success, being successful in sort of living an integrated life in Judaism is contribution. If you make yourself a part of it, like my wife has her whole family converted, and they converted in a Syrian shul that don't believe in converts, And it was shocking to me that this man made a point to buy an aliyah every single Shabbos. Every single Shabbos, he's up there getting an aliyah. Why? Because he wanted to tell them, I'm not going to be forgotten. I'm a part of this, And now he's loved by everyone. He changed the entire experience for converts in that shul because he just wouldn't accept the discrimination. So he became beloved. Why? He didn't see himself that way. He chose not to see himself that way. So it's a two-way street. And what I feel is like, if we come close, there's a chance you're going to get rejected, but there's also a chance, the 50-50, that, you're going to teach them. You're going to teach them something different. You're going to see, you're okay. You're once I get to speak to you, I see you, I can learn more about you as a person then it creates a bridge. I think that we serve as a bridge in the Jewish community between sort of like, we're bringing something to them also, and our journey itself is something they can learn and be mechazik from. So see it as a gift and as a bracha, and I think that's sort of the solution to it, or at least an approach.
And I think that you can understand it. It's one of the things we talk about is how we don't just tolerate different people in our community. We celebrate their differences. We have kiddishes, where we'll specify South American kiddishes because we have some South Americans, or we'll do different things to try to celebrate the differences, as you're referring to, which helps people be more accepting and open to each other. And that's extremely important. Jews are not white Anglo-Saxons. Jews are Jews. Our religion is what unites us, and we can be all kinds of people and learn and celebrate so much from each other. And I think that's what we've done with you over the past hour. It's really been a pleasure to listen to your story, to talk to you, to get to know you a bit, and how everybody has the opportunity to continue this relationship with Yosef. He's given you his email, and the purpose is for you to use it, to check in some of the places that he wrote about, and also to look at all the details of the process of conversion that he and some others went through. It's all there in the notes on the side. So I want to take this opportunity, Yosef, to thank you so much for giving of your time, because it's got to be about like not much after dinner time for you back there. So we appreciate your giving of your time, and we look forward to further communications. And we hope that if you're ever out in the East Coast, that you'll come spend some time with us. We'd love to be able to show you what we have and learn some more from you. So thank you again very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
It's been our pleasure. Everyone, we're going to sign off now. Next week, we're going to be, we're having an interview with a fellow, his last name is Eckstein. He was the head of the Green Party of Canada, and he resigned because of anti-Semitism. And when he resigned, he talked about it. He went on national news and talked about it. So he's got a very interesting story to share with us. That will be next week. You'll get information on that when we come up. Again, Yosef, thank you for joining us. And everyone else, thank you for giving of your time and being a part of this. I hope you found it as interesting as I did. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great night, and thank you very much.